3, 2, 1.
All righty. Okay, so we're streaming on YouTube and the meeting is a live stream, right?
It's okay, we're live.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome and happy Black History Month. We're being recorded, so we're streaming on YouTube.
Yes.
And the meeting is a live stream, right?
It's okay, we're live.
Okay. Good morning. Welcome. So Kim, it's a delayed over here on my part, I guess.
We're good to go.
Okay. So welcome. Once again, good morning. Happy Black History Month. And thank you for joining our Zoom party. I am Lion Suzette Logan, and this is the National Provider Network, sponsored by Family to Family, the Illinois chapter of the Federation for Children's Mental Health. At the National Provider Network, we strive to bridge the gap between people and resources, bringing together organizations, schools, and agencies to support the community, local and national. We are a professional network aimed at breaking down and erasing barriers to education, health, physical and mental, and supporting economic stability for youth and their families. Locally, the National Provider Network represents youth and their families in the townships of Bloom, Bremen, Rich, and Thornton. Each month, the National Provider Network works towards the goal of increasing access to educational and mental health support by highlighting innovative services, programs, and presenters who address mental health well-being, social emotional learning, and educational services along with economic and community development. So we are going to get this party started. Get comfortable, get your coffee, get your tea, get your water or soda, and I will call on people to introduce themselves and to say where they are. Then I will introduce our presenter for today. And this is just a reminder, we are only meeting for 1 hour. So please hold your questions until the end of the presentation. But you can also put questions or information or your email in the chat boxes. And also you can put announcements. So first up, I'd like to call on Ariel to introduce herself and say where she's from.
Hey everybody, I am Ariel. I am from Northwestern University and DCFS. I work as part of the Spider team. I also work with Family to Family, doing membership and marketing. Nice to meet everybody.
Hey, thank you. Next up, we have Miss Shanae Weems.
Good morning, all. I am Shanae Weems from River Edge Hospital, the community liaison. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Thank you for being here, Shanae. Next up, we have Lakeisha Hall. Lakeisha, okay, there you go.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday Eve. Well, I am Lakeisha Hall, and I am from the South Suburban area. I am employed by Speed School District 802 Management Program. We serve as the community in the South Suburban area.
Well, thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me here. I love it. I love networking.
Okay, good. Next up, we have Maureen Hall, Lakeisha's cousin. They didn't know it. Her cousin.
Set it off.
All right. Good morning, cousin. Good morning, family to family, because we all are family. Hi, I'm Maureen Hall. I am the founder of Premier Treatment and Counseling Services located in Flossmoor, Illinois. Premier provides addiction treatment services to adults and adolescents.
Well, thank you.
No problem.
Next up, we have Miss Giovanna Smith.
Good morning, everyone. Giovanna Smith, DCFS, Resource and Recruitment. I attend the meetings because I love networking, but my role at DCFS to recruit foster parents for our children who are in care. We do presentations, we come out to events, so please keep us in mind if you or anyone you know are considering becoming a foster parent. Thank you.
Thank you, Giovanna. Next up, we have Kristen Hadley.
Hi, everybody. Kristen Hatley, founder of Elmhurst University ADHD networking group. The Disability Advocacy Department of Family to Family, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you, Kristen. Next up, we have Michelle Dunlap.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dunlap. I work at Speed with Lakeisha Hall. We work with 0 to 3 and prenatal mom.
Well, thank you, Michelle, and welcome, baby.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Frances Thomas.
Good morning, everybody. I was invited by Miss Kimberly Haynes. I am a parent here in the South Suburban area, and I am just here to see how I can participate and to learn.
Well, thank you, Frances. We love having parents with us, and whatever we could do to help you, absolutely, we got you. Next up, we have Janine Delano, or maybe it's Jenny. No, it's Janine, right? Janine?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Janae Delano. I'm a community educator. I'm sorry?
No, it's Janae, right? I want to get it right. I don't want to say it wrong.
Yes, ma'am. It's Janae.
Okay,
Yeah,
Janae.
It's a long story about how it's spelled, but my name is Janae Delano. I'm a community educator at Sertoma Star Services. My supervisor, George Washington, recommended me to get into this presentation and learn as much as I can. But Sertoma Star Services provides mental health services.
Well, you know what, Janae, welcome. And we love Gia and we love Sertoma Star. And Sertoma Star does our mental health first aid training. So welcome, my darling.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Okay, now this next person, I know I'm going to mess up your name, but I'm going to try very, very hard. Shavantika S.
Hi, thank you for that effort.
Well, what is it? How I pronounce it, baby?
It's Chavunduka. Chavunduka.
Okay, I was
and most
way
people call
off.
me Cha. It's okay though.
Chavunduka Cha, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Tell us where you're from.
I work with as the program director or co-director for the after school program at the Institute of Positive Education, which is in Chicago. And I was invited to this meeting by Dr. Robinson. I'm a big fan of hers. And so when I found out about this Zoom, I wanted to participate. And so that's why I'm here. I always learn a lot when I hear her speak.
Well, Sha, welcome, 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 welcome. Sorry about messing up your name, but I got that Sha now. So it's all good.
All right.
All right. Next up, we have Dorian Reed. Reed. Okay, we'll come back. See who we got. Oh, Melissa Box.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Melissa.
Hi, my name is Melissa Box. I am with Illinois DCFS. I'm the Family First Prevention Services Administrator. So I'm interested in the networking piece of this, as well as I think education is a really key piece of prevention. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you and welcome. Welcome. Next up, we have Carolyn. Carolyn Banastali. Carolyn? Okay, Carolyn. I'm moving on to Callie. Callie?
Me, Kelly?
Yes, you, Callie. How are you, darling?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good.
My name is Kelly Tavermina. I am the nurse supervisor of the Nurse Family Partnership Program at Metropolitan Family Services.
Well, welcome. And it's either Kelly or her team that's always here, and we appreciate very much having you guys. We love having you.
Thank you. We love being here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So I'm going back to Carolyn. Are you there, Carolyn? Well, maybe she stepped away from the computer, so we're just going to go with okay, let's go with Kimberly Haynes.
Good morning. This is me, Kimberly. I am a member of the COPE Cyber Alliance and also the Executive Director for Family to Family. And I would just like to welcome everybody here.
Well, thank you, Kim. Now, let's see, is it anybody I missed out on? Carolyn, are you there now? No? Okay. Judson Strickland? I could, okay, you're on mute. Ms. Strickland, you're on mute.
Yes.
Okay, there you go. Now you're back on mute. Kim, can you take her off of mute?
She can take her, but we are kind of getting into, yeah.
All right. Okay, so we'll come back with the people at the end that didn't really introduce themselves. So, but I would like to talk about our presenter today. Her name is Dr. Theresa Robinson, and we are very honored to have her. Dr. Robinson is an associate professor and director of secondary and PK-12 education at Elmhurst University, Illinois. She earned her BS in biological sciences and secondary education and a Ph.D. in curriculum and instruction with an emphasis in science and environmental education. She is the founder of the George Washington Carver Center for Advancement of Science Education. She has taught science in schools in the Chicago public school system, and she has dedicated her career to preparing teachers to teach STEM in a culturally relevant and sustaining way. She serves as the Principal Investigator for the National Science Foundation Noyce STEM Teacher Education Program. So Dr. Robinson brings a wealth of expertise and experience to the table and to our meeting today. And we are so honored to have her share her insights and strategies for advancing equity in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, education. Her dedication to empowering Black and Brown children in STEM aligns perfectly with our goal at the National Provider Network of bridging the gap between families and resources. So with that, I would like to say, welcome, Dr. Robinson, and the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you for that warm welcome, Ms. Logan, and
You're
everyone
welcome.
who has come to join. I am humbled to hear my own accomplishments because they are not forefront and center for me because they're things that I've done in the past. But what's most important is the work that I do to support Black children and families and making sure that they have high quality science education. I'd like to thank Ms. Haynes and the Family to Family Federation for Children's Mental Health for inviting me today to come and talk to you. I love to talk to the community and spread the word and awareness about the issue that we have with the opportunity gap for especially Black children in STEM education. I don't need to review my qualifications. They have been read to you, but more importantly, my passion is making sure that the teachers that I work with are going out and providing the best culturally relevant STEM education that they can. And so today we're going to be discussing a few points, the need for culturally relevant pedagogies and science education. And I must say that I appreciate hearing the backgrounds of everyone and why they came today. That helps me to understand my audience. And so I know that many of you here are working with children, and my background is teaching. However, I will be teaching you as people who will then go in and have an impact, and hopefully there are some things that we can do to support the children for prevention. So this word pedagogies, for those who are not in education, just means teaching. And then number two, teaching and learning strategies for inclusion and diversity in STEM education. And then understanding factors that impact student achievement in STEM. Those are the things that we're going to be discussing holistically. These are some assumptions when I work with teachers, which I do professional development for teachers that are in service, as well as teachers who are going to be teachers. And sometimes when I work with the high school teachers in particular, I have to address some things. And so I put this out front so that we understand that visual and performing arts are essential to the development of the whole child. What that means is that the research has been clear in showing us the connection between art and music and STEM and science and math achievement. And so we don't sacrifice art and music for science achievement, because we know that math goes hand in hand with music and art goes hand in hand with science. Now, I could elaborate, but because of time, I'm going to cut that. Maybe we can talk about it towards the end. Second assumption that we should all go into understanding STEM education as parents and providers and educators and advocates is that social studies and literacy are essential pathways for students to understand science, and that's especially for kindergarten through 8th grade. Now, that means that kindergarten through 8th graders should be reading stories that relate to science, having stories read to them that relate to science. Teachers should be focusing on the academic language, the vocabulary, and then the social studies, right? How do we see science and STEM in the real world around us? And we see that in technology and advancements. Those are things that involve social studies. So we don't want to sacrifice art, music, social studies, and reading, and we don't, for STEM education achievement. Third, not all students will desire or become employed in the STEM workforce. Now, again, this is a comment that really I have to gear the high school people towards. And that statement is that when we are encouraging students to pursue STEM education, it's with the understanding that some are going to want to be employed in the STEM workforce and others may not. But it is my belief that STEM education is a civil rights for all students, and they need to have the training in the cognitive skills, creativity that come along with STEM education so that they can pursue whatever career it is that they want. Although I am biased and I do want to see more Black children participating in STEM careers. But as we move forward as advocates and educators, understanding that not all students will be employed in the STEM workforce, and that's okay. And then lastly, the STEM cognitive skills and abilities are for all learners. So if a student says, I don't like math, I don't like science, I'm not interested in it, that's okay, because the skills and abilities that they learn while in classrooms or after school programs, they are for all learners. So this is some data from 30, this was published in 2017. But it shows 20 years of data, and this is collected by the Illinois Board of Higher Education, to look at trends in the teaching workforce. Now, if I were being a very good teacher, I would ask, what trends do you see in this data? What do you notice about this data from 1996 to 2006 to 2016? And so what we see is that there is a decline in the numbers of teachers overall teaching in the state of Illinois. But when we look particularly at the numbers of teachers who are white compared to African American, it's almost triple the number, as well as for Asian Americans and Hispanics. But the one trend that you should notice is that the group that is increasing in the ranks are that of Hispanic teachers. Now, what does that mean for children? What that means is that they are less likely to see a teacher that is the same race and ethnicity as them. Well, what does that impact? That means that I have to work hard as a teacher educator to make sure that those 70% of white women teachers are prepared to teach science in culturally relevant ways, that they are culturally competent, and that they understand how to access the prior knowledge and the experiences and the funds of knowledge that children bring, because all children bring things to the classroom from home that we can use to support their education. But this trend is not improving. And what we see now, this data comes out about every 10 years, as you notice, so it'll come out again, and that the ranks of African Americans are not going into teaching. Now, again, there's lots I can say about that, but we're going to continue and we could probably have a discussion about that. The STEM achievement gap. Now, there is an assessment of national assessment of education progress that's done every year. It's a national study. There's also an international study for math and science. And what you see on the screen is the by race and eligibility for free and reduced lunch on that national assessment of education progress. And you'll notice that for those students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch, Black children, as it relates to STEM education, are at the bottom. And those who are not eligible, they're also at the bottom. Similarly, when we look at that international study of math and science progress, out of 41 countries that are included in that, that evaluation, America as a whole is 32 out of 41. So we have a national problem with STEM education in America. And so we know that if there's a problem for everybody, that Black children are more impacted typically. And we can see that we are not performing as compared to others. But if we look at this simple chart here, we can see the other races and ethnicities. And so it varies greatly across demographic regions, but this STEM achievement amongst Black children has persisted for over 30 years. 30 years, let that sink in. So when I do not see myself, I cannot know who my students are. I will see them through a glass darkly in the shadows of my unexamined life. And when I cannot see them clearly, I cannot teach them well. And this is for anyone who is working with children. And so again, if I were doing the good thing as a teacher. I would ask you, what does that mean for you? And I do ask you, while I won't ask for any responses at this time, but to think about, what does this statement mean for you in your position? And it starts off with when I do not know myself. And so what I encourage all people who work with children is to have a clear understanding of your identity and who you are, and be firm in that so that you can then see the children that you're working with more clearly. So when we talk about the impact of the lack or achievement gap in STEM education, it is an economic issue. And this is why I believe STEM education is for all children, but they all deserve to have STEM education. So STEM employment in the US, this is from the Pew Center for Research, has grown 79% over the last 34 years. Computer jobs have increased 338% in the same period. Women's representation has increased in STEM jobs, although women still tend to be underrepresented in certain fields. What fields do you think that those are? If you could put those in the chat. So just so that I am engaging you, what fields in science, technology, engineering, mathematics do you think women are still underrepresented in? Blacks make up 11% of the US workforce, but represent only 9% of the STEM workers. So 11% of the US workforce is low. And then when we look at those who are working as STEM workers, it's 9%. Now, what we know about that 79% increase is that more jobs are requiring STEM capabilities and careers that we don't necessarily associate with being a STEM job, like a nurse or a dental hygienist. Those are all careers that require considerable amounts of STEM capabilities and knowledge. And STEM workers earn significantly more than non-STEM workers. So it becomes an economic issue for the Black community if our children are not prepared with those abilities. So let me see what some people thought. Engineering, medicine, physics, absolutely. We're coming up in engineering. Computer science and engineering are the two fields where women are still underrepresented: computer science and engineering. So there's just a little note here on the side. There's one qualified chemistry teacher per 2,000 students in a high-needs school. There's one qualified chemistry teacher per 100 students in a non-high-needs school. A high-needs school is a school where over half of the students are free and reduced lunch. They have teachers who are teaching outside of their licensure area. So we see an inequity even in the teachers who are there. One chemistry teacher for 2,000 students, somebody's not going to get chemistry. So I keep using these words, STEM, what STEM capabilities. So I just have this slide here for you to understand the cognitive competencies. Those are the thinking things that we think about. That's the knowledge of math, chemistry, and other science and engineering fields. And then there's the STEM skills. That's complex problem solving, right? With children, that can start with something as simple as doing puzzles at home. That's where they begin their problem solving, puzzles and games. And I do not mean the electronic kind. Technology design and programming. There are web-based tools that help children. They can just play a little game of how to program the robot. And then there's the STEM abilities, that's deductive and inductive reasoning. Can you take pieces of information and come up with the main idea, or can you use the main idea and break it down into its various components and parts? Different types of reasoning, thinking skills. There's mathematical reasoning. And the example I give is to my students is, if you go into a store and they say it's a sale or not a sale and it's 10% off, do you need to pull out your calculator to figure out what 10% off is? You shouldn't. You should be able to figure out that if you just really move the decimal point over 1. And that's what the price is going to be off. Or conversely, if it says 50% off, can you estimate that that's about half off, right? There's some reasoning and mental math that we should have and we should be encouraging in our students. And then just facility with numbers, right? Oh, it's about an inch, right? We know an inch is about from our pointer finger. Or that's about a pound, or just figuring numbers, using those numbers in real world applications. And then there's the non-cognitive competencies that are not necessarily related to thinking, but preferences for investigative and independent work. Now, there are going to be children who are just inclined to work on projects and investigate things. And there's also students who like to work independently. And for both of those non-cognitive competencies, projects like science fair projects are ideal because they get at those non-cognitive competencies. Now, I've broken up some of my presentation here, so this is salient points, and I want to talk about the importance of language and literacy. And we tend to think about English language learners as those whose first language isn't English. And there's a book, the source is here. It's a classic. I require it for most of my teachers who come through. It's called Other People's Children, Cultural Conflict in the Classroom by Lisa Delpit. And it's all about language. And it's all about accepting the language that children bring to school, the various forms that they bring to school, and the challenges that can arise for students whose cultural experiences are not in line with the learning of standard English. And that includes Black children who may speak African American vernacular English at home. So there's 3 types of language. There's home language. That's the language we speak at home. That's the language I speak when I'm communicating with my 83-year-old grandmother who worked in picking cotton in Alabama. That's home language. That's not the same language that I use with her when I'm speaking with my friends, like, hey, girl, what we doing? That's my social language. And it might include a little slang, right? I might say, we were turned up, or we were lit. And then the academic language is the language that the children are learning in school. That's the language that I'm using here with you today. I'm trilingual. I can speak all 3. And some of the children are learning that. There's a famous, it's been viewed over 5 million times on TED Talk by Jamila Lissa Scott, 3 Ways to Speak English. She's a Caribbean American woman, and she's talking to the audience about speaking patois at home with her Caribbean parents, speaking her language with her friends in New York and saying what's good. And then as an English person speaking academic language. It's a very profound, I think 9-minute video that I show to future teachers to help them understand that English language learners whose first language isn't English, or their home language isn't standard English, have to have experience with the language of science. And then that acquiring of academic language takes 5 to 10 years for children. So if they are starting in kindergarten and they have that STEM education where the vocabulary, the academic language, the terminology is being taught, we don't expect them to have that until they go through K-12 education. But what if they're not getting that? And then social language can be used as a foundation for academic language and learning. And some people will say, well, are you encouraging students to speak bad English? Well, first of all, I don't believe in bad English, number one. The language that my grandmother speaks is good English. I understand her, she understands me. But what we have to do is help children understand how to transition. And so what I teach people is, if you are working with complex science ideas, then there's no need to correct their language if the understanding is there, right? And then helping them to build a bridge to the appropriate science terminology. So this is a slide that from some research that I did over I don't know 6 years about teaching diverse children, and these were the remarks of I don't know how many students who worked with diverse students, and they said these were the 3 important things that they thought that needed to happen, is that teachers need to know their students and their backgrounds. Now, parents, you know your students and your learners, and so I have some things later in the presentation. And then language and discourse, use the language of science and allow for discussion. This is important for at home, at school, when you're working with children, is to allow them to explain their thinking about things. It's where they make meaning. And then make connections to the lives of students and the community. I'm going to move through a couple things because of time. Math for social justice. So these are some things to think about if you are working with your child or other people's children as it relates to math. And the one that I want to focus on is culture and history. And so this is a question to ask yourself. How do you acknowledge students' funds of knowledge? Now, a fund of knowledge is something that the children bring to school from home. It's a fund, like you can tap into it. It's capital, right? So an example for my life is that because my grandparents were farmers, had gardens, fished, EB. When I got to school, and by the way, I did not have a official or formal science class until I was in 6th grade. Now that's my personal experience. So how did I get where I'm at? But that's another discussion. Part of it was because I had home and family connections to the real world of science. So we were gardening, right? My grandfather is deceased. He would have been 107 years old. And he knew indigenous ways to fertilize the soil. So if we went fishing, and they gutted the fish, those fish guts went into the soil to provide nitrogen. I learned that. My grandmother worked in like an electrical shop. And so she, people would bring in little things and they would fix. So, I would see her fixing little fans. That's circuits. So by the time I did get to school and I had a good teacher, she was able to connect to those funds of knowledge. Facility with numbers. My grandmother sewed. The rule is measure twice, cut once, right? There was cooking, there's measuring, there's baking, there's fractions. So all those are things. So how are you acknowledging the funds of knowledge and histories of mathematics and communities and the cultures of the students? Herein lies part of the problem that we see in public schools with children. But I can say that there's some change going on. Then there's this idea of windows and mirrors. What opportunities are provided for students can see themselves in the curriculum? How are they being represented? Or are they always seeing posters of white males? Are they seeing posters of women? Are they learning about George Washington Carver? Are they learning about Lonnie Johnson? Right? That's science and math as a cultural accomplishment. Living practices. How do you promote mathematics as something in motion? Right? When we say motion, that you do every day. When you're driving down the interstate or you're driving down the E-way and it says next exit, 1/4 mile, there's math right there. All right, I'm going to move on because of time. So 3 ways to support your child in STEM. Number 1, visit zoos, museums, and nature preserves to show science in the real world. Just taking them on those trips. And you don't have to know all the answers, but those experiences are good for children. Play games like chess. If I could encourage any game for children to learn, it's chess. Monopoly, Mancala, dominoes, Yahtzee to enhance logical and computational thinking. All those are games that require computational thinking and math reasoning. And then read science-related picture books and stories to integrate reading literacy. I have a couple I'll pull out. This is one of my one of my favorites. I don't know if y'all can see it. Picture of trees. And then here's an organic chemistry coloring book. Right? These things exist. Hopefully you can see that.
We can see it.
Great, thank you. So there is a City of Chicago Science and Innovation Fair that I am hosting as part of the one of the programs of the George Washington Carver Center for the Advancement of Science Education in partnership with the Institute for Positive Education and Illinois Tech, which was formerly Illinois Institute of Technology. The fair is April 27th at Illinois Institute of Technology. Registration is open. The students will participate in a science and innovation fair, connect and interact with and collaborate with their peers. There'll be prizes and awards for innovation and excellence in STEM, local expert judges, and they'll investigate solutions to STEM issues that impact their communities. And so I will provide this information in the chat before we leave. If anyone is interested in registering a student or your school or students, let me know. There is a STEM, this is free, there's no cost to attend. It's a STEM, it's called the STEMtastic Pre-K through 12 STEM Teaching Conference. It's held at Elmhurst University. These are some pictures from last year's event. There are vendors. I heard this year there are going to be some live animals there, and it is for parents and community. And from pre-K through 12, there are sessions for early childhood STEM education all the way through high school. Another event that happens annually in the city of Chicago is the Museum of Science and Industry. It happens typically in October, so look out for that. It's for children and families. We have one of the premier museums for science and industry in the nation right here in Chicago. By the way, it was my favorite museum when I was a child, obviously. But, you know, it's a museum that children can go in and actually touch things and play, right? And so in the bottom, there's just a little shameless mama plug. That's my daughter leading our station with the children making oobleck. And I just thought these children were so cute. I'm a scientist, but that event is at the Museum of Science and Industry. And it's usually like 5,000 people to come in and out of that event. So here's our responsibility: to ensure all children, including students in the process of learning STEM, that's the little ones, they're in the process, that they have equal access. Now, little note, science teaching doesn't happen K through 5 every week in most public schools. And that's a problem. The reason that is because the teachers are focusing on reading and math because that's what they're tested on. But they are tested now in 5th grade, 8th grade, and 11th grade in math, in science. And that's a trend. And I know that to be true. That is just not happening. And if they're not getting science K through 5, there's no wonder we're behind. So equal access, that means that there has to be science happening in K through 5. Pre-K through 5, let me say that. Because I know pre-K, some of my teachers are teaching children in pre-K. So that they have equal access to quality STEM education that enables them to progress academically while having their identities centered in the process of teaching and learning in safe spaces. Now, emotionally safe spaces, socially safe spaces. So when I taught, I tolerated no banter between because that little verbals, it just escalates. So that's our responsibility, in my opinion. For more culturally relevant STEM education and programming, you can see my website, and then you can email me at the Carver Science Center at gmail.com. Please follow me on Noyce.3000. That's our Instagram page, and there's things that come up there for us. Those are just some references. I'm going to stop sharing and open up for the last couple minutes that we have for any questions.
I would say this, Dr. Robinson, that was awesome. And I want to thank my parent for making us visit the Museum of Science and Industry when we were younger, and that was one of my favorite places to go. But anyway, so thank you. It's open if you have questions. You know, you can raise your hand and put the questions in the chat box. But Dr. Robinson, oh my God, thank you, girl. It was, yeah. I'm gonna speak I'm gonna speak the social language, girl. That was all of that.
I'm trilingual.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We do have some people that are asking you to drop your information in the chat box.
Okay.
Contact information again. And then I do have a question. So one of the things that, because I have a grandson who is, you know, he's very much into technology. And I see a lot of, I call it tech shaming, where I feel that we tend to demean our children for being into technology. And I get it, you know, not every kid who's glued to an iPad or to an iPhone is learning something. Some of them are just, you know, consuming inappropriate media. But do you have any insight on like how can we kind of explain, or how can we help our kids take that interest and further it into something that's a little bit more productive?
Okay, so the idea of shaming, right? That's a little parent, I think, education that has to happen. I experienced it also when I was a child. I just wasn't, things are better. Let me say this, things are better than they were 30 years ago. But I remember a family member saying to me, I don't know why or how you into all this, you know, and for me as a child, I was like, oh my gosh, you know, but there were other people in the village that did encourage that. So it kind of negated it. So that is an experience. As it relates to technology, my question is, are they consuming the technology or are they creating using the technology? And there's a difference. If you're a consumer of the technology, we now know that the looking at the screens for a long periods of time, it does have an impact on children, especially in reading. Screen reading is different than reading paper. Handwriting is different than typing because of the connections to the brain and what we know about brain-based education. So what I would say to a child that is interested in technology is to find some things where they can create on the technology. I don't have it on hand, but I have actually a girlfriend who's a computer scientist, and she did a workshop for me once. And it was just so simple with like how to program the little robot, and the children loved it. So I think that there should be limits. I know that there should be limits to access. The data is conclusive about being on screens and use of technology with children, and that it should be limited. There should be times set. These companies have invested in psychologists, and they have all the bells and whistles to get children addicted. And so we want to make sure that they are not addicted. And when we do that, we can make sure that they're focusing on how to create using the technologies, how to build things, how to code, how to, just that's the highest level of thinking, is to create. And so consuming and too much screen time is detrimental to their development. So that's what I would say. But, as far as the shaming, as much as we can try to limit that. Obviously we should, because I'm 40, I'm almost 50 years old. I still remember the day, where we were at when he made the comment, that's how deep it goes. But again, I had a village around me that kind of, canceled those things out.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Robinson.
Welcome. Thank you for your presentation. And if anybody has any announcements, they could put those in the chat box. And Kim, I know you wanted to finish up. It's almost time for us to go. Announcement.
Okay, and I definitely want to echo and say thank you again, Dr. Robinson. I think this was an excellent presentation, especially when we're celebrating Black History Month and really kind of giving us all something to think about
Exactly.
as we advocate for our children. And I want to also just thank everybody for continuing to be a part of the National Provider Network. Last month, we were fortunate enough to have some guests from Governor Pritzker's Children's Behavioral Health Transformation Initiative to talk with us specifically about how this initiative will impact the Land 53 service area of Bloom, Bremen, Rich, and Thornton Townships. And Family to Family is the convener for the DCFS Permanency Enhancement Project, which specifically takes a look at equity in the child welfare system and the disproportionality of children that are Black and Brown who are entering the child welfare system. And with the information that we received from the governor's office, we really wanted to extend an invitation to all of the stakeholders who come through this meeting to work alongside us to start really looking at how we can align the goals and work of the Permanency Enhancement Project with this statewide initiative, which is now in its second week and starting to really grow in momentum. So one of the things that Dr. Dana Weiner, who's from the Transformation Initiative, shared with us was some data that helped us to map the agencies and organizations that represent Bloom, Bremen, Rich, and Thornton Township. And right away, when we looked at this data, we saw that a lot of the people who come through here are not listed as providers. So we definitely want to, I'm going to drop a link so that you all can share that information and we can get that over to Ariel, who is part of the SPIDER team, to make sure you guys are listed in the SPIDER database. The SPIDER database is made available to, it's a public database, but it is used a lot of times by the DCFS caseworkers that are looking for services for children in care. If you are able to grab that link as well as consider becoming a partner with us, we definitely want to invite you to join us in some strategic planning. I'll be sending out a doodle poll to kind of get a good day for everyone, but we're definitely looking at something by the beginning of March so that we can start pulling the land together. And if you're part of another network, please don't hesitate. We want to make sure that we're covering as many bases as we can. And we are expecting for DCFS to also put together a presentation to give us a little bit more guidance in terms of how we can better support their efforts as well. So I am very grateful that you guys are continuing to come. Dr. Robinson did let me know that she will be sharing her presentation with us, and you'll be able to find that on our website. And I'm going to also just add our website as well. It is www.familycope.org. The other thing that we want to invite people to join us in is really the region needs a lot of capacity building. With respect to some of the initiatives, there are a lot of training opportunities that will support bringing in additional staff to the region to kind of help out as boots on the ground. So if you go to our website and click on education, you'll be able to see a list of some really good training opportunities. One that I highly recommend is MTAC, which is the Medicaid Training Assistance Center. So there are a ton of training opportunities. Some of them are classroom-based, virtual, everything's virtual, and some of them are self-paced. So please take advantage of those, and please complete the partnership agreement so that we can get your information sent over to the SPIDER team, get that database updated, as well as to make sure that we're adding you to the invitation to join a strategic planning session in the very near future. And I'll put my information as well if you have any questions.
Okay, so I just want to say thank you again to Dr. Robinson. It was awesome. And Kim, you know what? You on the money, baby. It's 11 o'clock. If
I
you're together,
tried. Suzette has trained me well.
and